Hey guys, it's Adam here for my marathon, beginning my marathon of GARO, Chapter of the Black Wolf. Now, I know probably most of you haven't watched it, but I don't worry. I will link in the description after I get this put on. Oh, sorry, the Watchtower. A link to Kiss Asian. It'll be in between two apostrophes because for some reason Facebook really hates Kiss Asian. Hold on, I got something on the. All right, hates Kiss Asian because it will almost instantly delete links to Kiss Asian. I guess because streaming Japanese shows that you can't buy over here is bad, or something like that. I don't know. Hold on, I need a drink. So yeah, um, yeah. So I will leave a link in the description, and you can watch it. I recommend watching it before you see this vlog. So if you're watching up to here, pause it, watch Garo Chapter of the Black Wolf episode 1, and then come back and watch the rest of the vlog. Or not. You jerks. Nah, I love you guys. You guys are cool guys. So, you're probably wondering why it's called Garo Chapter of the Black Wolf, and that's because Garo is a legacy character like the Flash, or Robin, or Green Lantern. And every series follows a different knight, but they all are the knight that inherits the title of Garo, the Golden Knight. And the adventures that knight has, and the characters he meets, and the people he fights with and works together with. And the first season has the title of Chapter of the Black Wolf, and I will, as we get through more of the episodes, we'll explain why it's called Chapter of the Black Wolf. But, anyway, a couple warnings. There's a little bit of nudity in this. This is an adult tokusatsu program. There's nudity, a lot of dark violence and horror undertones. Horror undertones. But yeah, it's really only like a couple seconds of nudity right at the beginning, and it's not anything that's like overly sexual. But I know if that turns you off, don't watch it, I suppose, or just fast forward a couple bits. And there's also a bit of flashing strobe effects. So if you have problems with strobe lighting, particularly seizures and such, it might be hard for you to watch. But I don't really think so. I'd mostly say that because when I watched this the first time, someone had DVD scans, and it had a warning that came on where they would talk about watching in the bright room. That's because of the electric soldier Porygon incident that happened back in the oh, excuse me, sorry, I had just lunch. It's coming back on me. Oh yeah, and the electric soldier Porygon incident where an episode of Pokemon had a really, really bad strobe effects, particularly with the colors red and blue switching back and forth really fast, and sent up like hundreds of kids to the hospital. So Japan has a really stringent regulations regarding flashes and strobe effects on television. I don't really think they're that bad. I think maybe once when I was watching it in the dark, I got a bit of a light headache from some minor strobe effects, but really the strobe effects aren't that bad, and it's only in a small part of the episode. So I don't think you should have any problems, but watch it in a bright room with the screen far enough away that it won't hurt your eyes. I know that's hard to do on a computer or laptop or TV, but you'll make do. All right, so anyway, now that I've got all that out of the way, quick summary. The show begins, and we're given the story. A young woman named Karu Mitsuki is an up-and-coming artist trying to get her work shown off, particularly her paintings, and has finally managed to get the ability to show them off in a museum. However, as luck would happen, the the curator is taken possession by a demon known as a horror, who feast on the dark intents of humans and possess other humans to feed on humans. While that's happening, we are introduced to our hero of the story, Koga Seijima, his butler, Gonza, who I won't be really talking about, but he shows up here, and his magic ring that helps him detect horrors, named Zaruba, who's also the narrator every once in a while. And they come across the horror, and to protect Kaoru, Koga buys one of her paintings and proceeds to fight with the horror that possessed the curator named Angri. But as the battle wears on, when Koga finally manages to slay the horror, Kaoru is covered in the blood of a horror, and Koga has to decide whether or not to slay her, as it is law by his order to hunt. sorry. To cut down humans that have become bathed in the blood of a horror. And that's the summary. So, the episode's really good. I think that for a first episode, it does really good by giving you bits and pieces of what this world is like, but it doesn't explain anything. And I think that's fine, because as it always does in every opening of every episode, it goes, "Where there is light, shadows lurk and fear reigns. Yet by the blade of nights, mankind was given hope." That basically says, this is the story of a knight. And this is the world it's in. And don't worry about too much about, what we're going to explain to you. It's going to happen. Just enjoy the ride. And I think it works really good because it sets up the world, it introduces you to the main characters, and gives you some great action and the basic setup of the series. It's actually kind of interesting because you really don't even see the main character Koga Seijima until about 5 or 6 minutes in. It's very much establishing the victim of the week, who gets possessed by the horror, because every episode has a different victim every week. And how they're tied to Kaoru in this episode, which I think was really great to tie her into the story since she's just a painter. And it also sets up this mystery behind her, that if she keeps having these dreams of herself as a little girl with a picture book that was drawn by her late father, with a golden knight on it fighting demons, as well as these demons coming out of nowhere to attack her, and then the golden knight from her picture book slays the demons, and she wakes up. That there's a mystery about it, about why she has this book, and about why it's about GARO. And it sets it up really well. And it's a basic story, it's just a monster comes, Kaoru gets involved, and then Koga comes along and slays the demon. We don't really get a lot with Koga. We mostly get stuff that introduces him, because as the series goes, we'll get more with him. And really, we don't even really start learning a lot about his backstory until midway through this season, and then we get snippets of it throughout the movies that came in between season 1 and season 2. And then season 2, we get a lot more. But I think it's really good. We get to see him training with these giant axes that he has to dodge and knock back with his sword. And we basically get an idea about what his routine is as a Makai Knight, as they'll become known. He trains, and then at night he hunts horrors, as that's when they like to come out. I also really like how we see him get orders, that his butler Gonzo will receive envelopes that are colored in red, and then he'll take out what you'll find out later is called a Mado lighter, and he'll light it on fire, and then it'll create a message that he has, only he can read. I always love when you get to see cool stuff like that. We actually get to see him being a really good hunter, albeit he really doesn't understand how human interaction works. As when he first meets Kaoru, he literally grabs her by the throat, knocks her into a wall, and then proceeds to put the Mado lighter up to her eyes, because that's how you can tell if a human is a horror. Their eyes react and show the inner horror in them to the light, to the flame. And also the flame will actually flicker brighter. But you can clearly tell Koga is very much, in that interaction, he's dedicated to his job. He does not interact with humans a lot. All he cares about is killing horrors and doing that job. And you get these really neat things where like he tries to act like a, he interacts with both Kaoru and the horror, and you actually get to see what horrors can do. This one in particular creates a barrier around the museum so that nothing can escape, so he can eat Kaoru after he finishes off Koga. And he also creates traps using the paintings in the in one of the hallways, which is one of my favorite fights in this because they turn into these red ninjas with like swords and like a polearm. And yeah, and Koga has to fight them off. And it's where you get to see where this series really shines, like is the fight between Koga and the minions that the horror angry summons. Sorry, this warm weather. Hold on a second. Let me take a drink. A little Fanta. There we go. There we go. Anyway. But yeah, you really get to see the fights there because, for one, Koga's actor gets to, he gets to fight them, and you can clearly tell he's doing almost all of his own stunts, from the wire work to the sword play, to even a lot of the martial arts stuff that he does in this. It's really, really well done, and it's one of the things I love about this show is that they clearly want to have the actors do some of their own stunts to make it look more real. Like, and it really shows because it, you get to see the hits, you get to see the reactions instead of like, cutting behind someone that's like their stunt double. And it's one of the reasons why I love Toku, because like you can actually see that there are like actors actually doing the stunts. Something that I feel is lost on the live action Power Rangers movie. I didn't want to talk about that. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Let's not talk about that movie and how I think it's going to be awful. But yeah, so, Koga fights them, and it's a really good scene. And then we kind of get where the series' weak points are, and that would be the CGI. Now, to Chapter the Black Wolf's credit, the original season came out in 2005. And I remember TV shows back in America that had CGI in 2005 and not look very good either. And thankfully, the CGI is not that bad. It's mostly in when the dude that's possessed by the horror finally becomes a horror that you really see the CG is kind of bad. It looks fine when they do it for the night armor that Koga will wear at the end of it, but for some reason, the horrors don't look very good, and I think it's because of the fact that they are supposed to have a little less realistic movement, where like they fly around and they spit acid. Well, this one can spit acid, but otherwise, it looks really good. I actually really like the CG where the horror enters this painting of skulls. You can clearly see it like stretching and morphing to become the horror's new body, and it works really well. And then we get the first suited fight between Garo and Angry. And it's not bad. It's pretty good. I actually like how every knight transforms by holding their weapon in a position, in Koga's case, it's aloft, and spinning it in a circle to create this dimension hole that the armor comes down and equips on them, which also turns their sword into their level 3. Basically, I shouldn't say level 3. It's unsealed. Every weapon that a Makai Knight has a sealed form, which is, in Koga's case, a Chinese longsword, that when he turns into Garo, it unseals and becomes a claymore. Fittingly enough called the Garo Ken, or Garo Sword in English. And it's really cool because you can clearly tell that Koga doesn't need to do the acrobatics and stuff anymore once he's in the armor. He basically knows that he's protected with the armor and really can just do basic punches and stuff to finish it off quickly. We also see a timer come up, and that's because Makai Knights can only wield their armor for about 99.9 seconds. That really won't come into play a lot during the battles because 99.9 seconds in the show is however long the fight scene has to be. 99.9 seconds will quickly become like 10 or 20 minutes, depending. But otherwise, it's really good. The fight's fine. It's a little short, but it's the first armored fight. Later fights will be a little bit longer, or they'll do a little bit more cool stuff. And it's really good. And it ends with some interactions with Kaoru and Koga, where you can clearly see how their relationship will play out. Where Koga seems kind of cold and aloof to her and makes insults to her. But the other way, you can clearly tell he cares for her. There's a particularly really good subplot where he really likes this painting of hers. Like, at first she's really upset that he basically ruined her chance at having an art show and basically used her to lure the whore out. But Koga, apologizes and says, I did really like the painting, and it's this painting. It kind of looks like Starry Night from Van Gogh, or Van Gogh, as Doctor Who told me it was pronounced. I don't really care. But like, he likes it because it reminds him of the place he grew up in, and he takes the painting, but he doesn't pay for it because Koga's a jerk. You'll see that throughout the series. Koga is a huge jerk, but he has a heart of gold. You see what I did there? That was really stupid. I'm sorry. But, but basically he doesn't pay it so that he can keep her around, as he points out she gets bathed in the blood of the whore that he's slain. And that means something that apparently, like, his organization, or at least, Makai Knights cannot let humans that have bathed in whore blood live, as he states. But he lets her live for a reason we will see later on down the road, of course. But, yeah. And that's where the episode ends. It's, like I said, it's a very good beginning, because it establishes what the world is like. It gives you a taste of the Makai Knights and the action and what kind of things we're in for as you watch the series. There's not a lot of character moments. Like, it's mostly just showing off who Koga and Kaoru are at the beginning of the series, and what their characters are like. We're also introduced to some minor characters. Again, we were introduced to Koga's butler and Mitsuki's friend, who's also a psychiatrist. But those two really aren't going to be important in this episode. Aren't really important in this episode. So know that they're there. They just don't do really a lot. They're basically just there to introduce them and to show what their roles will be as the show goes on. So yeah, I really like the episode. I think it's a great beginning, and it gets you interested in the show without revealing too much. And the action's really good. The CGI, which will be a thing throughout this season, and even some into the second season, which aired in 2010. And I'll explain when we finish the series and when we get to Makai Senki, the season 2, why there was like a 5-year gap between the two. And yeah. Oh, and I'll talk about the suit real quick. I really love the Makai Knights armors. I like the edges to them, and I like the intricacies to them. Kato Amemiya, who directs the series and will be a creative position throughout every single season of GARO so far. Does really great design work. You might know him. He did the work on Onimusha 2, the video game, if you've ever played that. He's done all sorts of stuff for Toku. He's done stuff for Sentai and Kamen Rider and a bunch of other stuff. But I love the suits. I love the helmets that are shaped like wolves' heads. I think that's really neat, especially because I think Koga's name literally means Fire Fang. You'll find out later that pretty much every Makai Knight's name usually means something intricately to the names. Like, when we get to the next Makai Knight that's introduced, which, yeah, we're going to get more knights. I'll tell you what his name means. But yeah, I really like the design. I love the sword. I love Koga's coat. I love those long coats that all Makai Knights wear. I don't know. I don't know if I'd really go for his all black leather bondage outfit, because I think that's a little too much leather for me. But yeah, the horrors have pretty decent designs. Angri, he has the basic horror look first, and then he gets his own design, which I like the skull, the giant skull demon thing he becomes more than I do the regular horror look. I've seen that look so much now, I'm like, oh, it's just the base horror look, but it looks fine. And I like that it's a suit. I like that both of them are suits with a little bit of CG. Again, much like the Garo Knight armor. But yeah, that's my review of the first episode of Garo Chapter the Black Wolf. Hopefully you'll come back tomorrow and we'll talk about the second episode. So I will catch you guys later. Stay awesome.